Vasudeva. Hari Om. Sem no mitrasyam varunaha sem no bhavatvaryama sem na indro brahaspatihi sem no vishnururkramaha namo brahmane namaste vayo tvameva pratyaksham brahmasi tvameva pratyaksham brahma vadishyami ritam vadishyami satyam vadishyami tanmamavatu tadvaktaramavatu avatu maham avatu vaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Pratya paschatya deshanam samanvaya vidhayakam Shantam Saumya Gunopetam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Sarva Vedartha Tattvajnam Vedartha Pratipadakam Purana Sara Sarvajnam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Om Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha. Welcome to all our brothers and sisters. So we now continue the study of the 24th aphorism of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. In fact, we have already commenced the study of this sutra last week. So we continue that study. This is the Sutra 24, Aphorism 24, in which Patanjali is defining, or rather explaining more clearly about who is Ishvara. Because in the previous aphorism 23, he explained us that we can attain that required state by a total surrender to the Lord Ishvara, to surrender what I have to what I am. I am means Ishvara. In this aphorism 24, he is more clearly explaining about who is Ishvara, how we can understand the term Ishvara. So Ishvara is that Purusha, whom we call the Purusha, the Lord Supreme, who is not at all tainted or influenced by the complications and the deeds and their results and the entanglement that occurs due to the deeds and also the proposals about the deeds. So all these things cannot influence. So the Purusha, the Ishvara is the Purusha who is not influenced by any of these things. He is above these things. So then who is influenced by these things? It is the individual consciousness or jiva. So this individual or jiva, is he different or independent from Ishvara, or is he a part of Ishvara? So how we have to understand, because this aphorism says that Ishvara is not at all influenced, whereas it is implied in this aphorism that Ishvara is not influenced by any of these things, untouched. He is not at all touched by these things. But Jiva, the individual, is influenced by all these things. So how we can correlate Jiva and Ishvara? Unless it is clear, this relationship between Ishvara, the Purusha, and the individual, the Jiva, we have to know very clearly the relationship between Ishvara and Jiva. To know this clearly, we have to take a best example. Always the best example for this is water and the block of ice. The block of ice manifests from water. Block of ice has no independent existence. It is only the solidified state of water, what we call a block of ice. When certain temperature of the atmosphere goes down, then condensation takes place and it goes to freezing, because it goes below 0 degrees centigrade. Then the water gets solidified and forms into block of ice. This we know. So, with analogy, with this example, here Ishvara is like the water. And a block of ice. So the individual, the jiva, is like the block of ice. Just like how the block of ice is only a manifestation of the condensed form of the water only. In the same manner, jiva, or the individual, is the manifestation of, his manifestation is from Ishvara only. So a part of Ishvara has taken the form of jiva, or the individual, a spark from Ishvara. So this water, this block of ice has different properties than the water. And these properties of the block of ice cannot influence water. How? For example, there are 5 blocks of ice floating on the water, same water. So as long as they are existing as blocks of ice, they are different, all the 5. Therefore we can number them as 5 pieces or blocks of ice floating on the water. After some time, when the water is a little bit heated up, then all these 5 blocks get dissolved, and then they become liquid once again. They go into liquid state, water state, and this water is merged with this water on which it was floating. So therefore, all this is water only. You cannot differentiate now water and blocks of ice. Cannot be differentiated now. So all these properties of the block of ice cannot influence water. So this is how you can realize, this is how you can correlate between Ishvara and the Purusha. Purusha and Ishvara, this is how you can correlate. So the properties of the block of ice cannot influence the water. As long as they are blocks of ice, they are 5 in number, but when they are dissolved into water, water is the only one. In the same manner, the individual, when there is the individual is existing, he is influenced by all these things, all complications. We are the individuals. We are individual beings. So we are affected or influenced by all the complications and the entanglements of all our doing and their results, and also all the proposals which we make about what we have to do, what we are doing, all these things. But all these things cannot influence the Ishvara, the indweller, the Lord, the indweller. So we are like the blocks of ice, individuals. Ishvara is like the water. So this aphorism clearly explains that Ishvara is never influenced by any of these things which influence the individual, the jiva. So this example we have to always remember. So as long as the water is in the form of the block of ice, it has different properties which are temporary. Temporary properties it has. So these different properties, it is called nature. All these properties which are existing in the individual who is like the block of ice, this is called the nature. And the one who is the indweller is called Purusha. So for example, we are sitting or standing here, anywhere. When there is some sort of order from our body, so we can feel the odor through the sense of smelling, but this odor cannot influence the space in which we are standing. We have to remember this example also. So any sort of odor or smell which is there in the room in which we are sitting or standing, this odor can be felt by us because we are existing as individuals. But the space, akasha, space, which is there in us and also in the room, is not influenced by any of this odor. So it is only we experience it because we have this smelling, sense of smell, sense organ we are having. So we feel that, but the indweller does not feel, he is not influenced, just like akasha, like that. So those things which influence, the first one is complication, and second one is karma. Karma means work. So in this karma or the work, it is of two types. One is karma cosmic. One is karma individual. So in work which belongs to individual and work that belongs to the cosmos, the cosmic, universal karma. So the one which binds, the karma which binds is only the karma of the individual but not the universal karma. Because universal karma is impersonal. Any act done which is impersonal will not bind. But any act done which is personal for the individual will bind. He is affected by the karma which is personal or individual. An impersonal deed will never bind. This we have to remember. So, there is creation. The act of creation is continuing in which we have taken our birth. So, we have our span of life, and during the span of life we develop certain qualities. Certain things are there like the needs, like our food and rest and drink and such things, and these needs are common between the humans and the animals. So these are common for all the beings, therefore there is nothing special. But what is special for us is some motives what we bear in our mind, and with those motives we start doing the work. And this will bind us. The first category, which is common for human beings and for all the beings, like taking the food, drinking water, or taking the rest, these are common things which are not special for any individual. It is common for all the beings. But apart from this, whatever work we do, motivated by our motives, personal motives, then this work is having values which are secondary and tertiary values. So therefore we are bound. There is a wonderful example to understand more clearly. Suppose the government has arranged a departmental store, a supermarket. The government itself has arranged this. Suppose we are working in that organization, and for that this market is arranged for the employees, for those who are employed in the work in the company. The system is that you need not pay anything for the education of your children, and you need not purchase with money or something whatever you need, like your food, grains, or suppose you need rice, no need to purchase. You can get from the stores, which is supplied by the company through the stores to you, what is required. So, everything is available there. So, whenever anybody requires, he will be given from the stores. So, there is no problem by this. Any problem does not arise. But suppose when we go into the store and we take some quantity of rice packet separately without being observed and put it in our personal bag, which is recorded in the camera, then immediately you are caught. What happened? When you have received the required quantity of rice from the stores, when you have requested, I need this, and they have given this, then there is no problem, nobody catches you. But suppose secretly you have taken some quantity in a packet and kept in your personal bag, which was recorded, then you are caught. So you see the difference. It is the same rice. Why you are caught and why you are not caught or conditioned? It depends upon the motive with which you have acted. This is what is called karma. So we always get confused about what we have to do, what we should not do, how we have to do, how should not do. In these things, the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita says, even those philosophers, great persons, so-called, also sometimes get confused in this aspect to decide about what is right way, what is wrong way, what we have to do, what should not do, like this. So it depends upon the motive. If the motive is personal, then you are responsible, you are bound, you are answerable. When there is no personal motive, then you are not bound at all, not influenced, you are not answerable. So, this Purusha or the indweller, he is there as indweller in every person. He is there as indweller in a good person and also in a wicked person, in everybody. Even in the thief, even in the criminal, in every person, he is there as indweller, the Ishvara. So suppose a criminal is there who has killed somebody and he was put in jail, in prison. Then what happens to Ishvara in him, who is the indweller? This fellow who is the individual is caught and kept in prison, but it doesn't mean that Ishvara is influenced by this. How? Just like how in this criminal fellow also there is Akasha. We have to accept this. There is Akasha everywhere, space everywhere. There is space in you, in me, in everybody. So in this criminal fellow also there is space, who is caught and kept in prison. So only this person was imprisoned. You cannot imprison the space in him. Can you? The space in the person is always free. The space cannot be imprisoned, cannot be punished. Nothing happens to the space in him. Because this Purusha or the Ishvara is there as indweller in the criminal and also in the police officer who has put this criminal into prison. In everybody he is there. So it makes no difference for Ishvara. He is indifferent. He is as if, that is what the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, I remain as if I am indifferent in my own creation. That is what the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita. Udasenavat asinaha. That is what he says. And that means I remain, I am present in every part of this creation, in every person, but I am as if I am indifferent. I am not concerned with the personality of the person. So you see, that is what the Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita. He explains to Arjuna, because Arjuna is very much confused in the beginning. Because he has to fight in the war, he has to kill the people whom he calls his relatives, his friends, his own people. So he gets into despondency, very despondent. But then the Lord explains that it is the motive which made them criminals. So who is punished in them is not the indweller, Ishvara. It is only the individual. The individual person, the individual jiva is always influenced by these aspects which are explained in this aphorism, the mistakes. So, if something done wrong, that influences him. That is what he says. Huh? That is what he says. Klesha, he says, klesha means mistake. Karma means the entanglement that binds due to the act which is done by personal motive. And then vipaka means the result of that. And asaya means the motive. All these things influence the individual, but not the Lord or the Ishvara, which is there as indweller. That is what we find in this. So, these things, the mistakes, the entanglement, the results and the motives, these things will not influence the Lord, the indweller in us. So, asaya means the place also. So, the Lord is there in every being. He is there in the human being as the indweller. He is there in the animals as the indweller. He is there in the plants as the indweller. The Ishvara is present as indweller in every being, in every thing that exists in this creation. He does not feel, the Ishvara does not feel proud when he is the indweller in the human beings, and does not feel inferior by being the indweller in animals, in creatures. Suppose there is mosquito. Indweller is there, the Lord is there as indweller even in the mosquito. He does not mind that. He does not feel any inferiority by being indweller in a mosquito. So these things he is not influenced. He is not touched by these things. All these things cannot touch the Ishvara, the Lord inside. So, now from this we understand that there is Ishvara who is the indweller in us, and also there is the individual called Jiva, the individual person. But the Jiva and Ishvara how can that be differentiated? It is just like how you differentiate block of ice and water. That's so simple. Ishvara is like the water, and the individual being, individual is like the block of ice. So they can be differentiated like this. So therefore, in this aphorism, the Lord is explained as Purusha Vishesha. The Lord who is special, the Lord of special existence. That is what in this aphorism Patanjali said. The distinguished indweller. Purusha Vishesha means distinguished, who can be distinguished as the Lord. Because the individual fellow and the Lord, they live together only. In everybody. They live as one. They are together, they live as one. But how can we differentiate? The Lord is the distinguished one, indweller. And the individual fellow is different. But they are together. Just like the block of ice floating on the water. So the individual is like the block of ice. Just like how the block of ice is floating on the water, the individual fellow is floating on Ishvara. When he becomes one, he is merged into that. Just like how the block of ice melts when it is melt, so it cannot be distinguished anymore from Ishvara. It is one with the water. Just like that, the individual also. So, when you make a total surrender to the Lord Ishvara, then it is like melting of the block of ice. You must accept this melting by surrender, total surrender. Then you are not differentiated anymore. You are with the one with the Ishvara, and then you are also not touched by any of these things. But when you dwell as individual consciousness, then you are influenced by all these things. This we have to understand very clearly. Just last week we have discussed with another example, like the pot which is made from the clay. So the pot can be broken, but clay cannot be broken. The clay does not suffer any sort of breaking and all these things. Whereas the pot can be broken into pieces. So what you call pot, the shape of the pot, the color of the pot, all these things, in no way they will influence the clay on which the pot is formed. So, along with all these parts, the total is called Purusha. But exclusive indweller is called Ishvara. Now we have to be clear. Exclusively, when you speak of only the indweller, then he is called Ishvara. But he is called Purusha, the totality of indweller and the individual. Water and block of ice together. Just like that, the Lord, Ishvara and the indweller and all these things together is called Purusha. So therefore, what are these things? All that influence is what all which we call, which is mind. What we say, what I have, or what we say, this is mine, this belongs to me, this belongs to me. All these things which we can claim that they belong to me, they will bind us. Not only objects, but also my intelligence, my knowledge, my intelligence, my achievements, all these things. All these things, they belong to what I have, but not what I am. So, in this aphorism, he is introducing us who is Ishvara. So the essence or the indweller in us, Ishvara. So if you ask what Ishvara does in us, he doesn't do anything. If the Ishvara is the indweller existing in us, if you ask what is this, what is that, what is it that he does in us, he doesn't do anything in us. So what is it that does something in us is either our body or our senses or our mind or our intellect. Any of these things will do something. Ishvara doesn't do anything in us. Then why he is there as the indweller? He is there for all these things. He has no births and deaths by himself. But even then, he is existing with the jiva or the individual who has birth and death. You see, he has no birth and death. He is eternal. But he is existing along with the individual jiva who is having birth and death. He has no work for himself. The Lord has no work or no obligation for himself in this creation. That is what the Lord very clearly explained in Bhagavad Gita. So he told Arjuna, my dear Arjuna, I have no obligation, I am not obliged to do anything in this creation. In all these worlds, in all this creation, I have nothing that specially what I have to do. Nothing binds me, I am not bound by anything, therefore there is nothing that I have to do. Because there is nothing that I have to attain, there is nothing that I have not attained. So I have nothing to do with this. Yet, I keep my presence in everybody who does so many things. So we have so many types of work, you know. But the indweller in us, the Ishvara in us, he has nothing to do. He is not obliged or bound, but still he is dwelling in us as Ishvara, the Lord indweller. While we are working also, he is there in us. So, this is a very special way of explaining, which you find in the Vedas and the Upanishads and the Bhagavata and all is about the Lord. He has special, always, that is why he is called Purusha Visesha. Visesha means special. So then what is the difference between Ishvara and between us. We have to very clearly know. The first primary difference is whatever belongs to us, to the individual, is what is called what I have. Whatever belongs to the Lord is what we say, what I am. This is the primary difference between the Lord and the individual. What I have is with the individual. What I am is Ishvara. Still we have to, we want to understand more clearly about the difference between the individual and Ishvara. So let us take another example. In your house, for example, how much quantity of the food, grains or the fruits are there in your house? Certain quantity only. Maybe, for example, a few kilos of grains and maybe a few numbers of fruits, maybe few grams of other things. Like this, you have a few grains, a few kilos of grains. Okay. If you go to the shop or market where they sell the grains, how many will be there? There can be some big stock of grains because it's a market where they are sold. Though maybe there may be about 100 bags of these grains in that market. Each bag may be weighing about 100 kilos, maybe like that. Very good. So, when you go to the storehouse of these grains, not the market but the storehouse, where all the grains that are grown by the farmer are brought and sold to the authority, where they are put in the storehouse, from where these market fellows purchase from time to time, how much quantity of grains will be there in the storehouse? Maybe some tons, some metric tons. Okay. So then now let us now take the how many grains will be there in a bag. Maybe some few thousands of grains will be there. Okay. Now, let us take a bag of grains. So after we have eaten some part of the grains, and some grains are eaten by the animals which you have given, so finally a few handful of grains are remaining, and these grains you put in the field. then there is these grains, from these grains there are sprouts coming out which grow into plants, and then they grow and they will form the fruits, and then from this you get more grains, more and more grains from this handful of grains which you have put in the field. So, now these grains which are there in the creation, in the fields, in the nature, they are not limited. They are unlimited. You see. So, whenever you put grains into the field, more and more grains will come out from the crop. There is no limit, there is no limitation for this. But the grains which are there stored in the storehouse or in the market house, they are limited in quantity. But in nature, what they are growing, they are not at all limited. You see, there is no limiter, endless. So now, Ishvara, the Lord, the indweller, now compare the knowledge which we have and the knowledge which the Ishvara, the indweller, is having. So the knowledge which we have when compared with the knowledge of the Ishvara is very limited, even though we are part of Ishvara only. But we are individual existing as individual. So therefore, when you make such comparison between the individual fellow and Ishvara, the indweller in him, it is beyond comparison. In Ishvara, everything is limitless, endless, unlimited. Whereas the individual fellow, everything is limited. So then, how to know Ishvara? How the individual fellow can know Ishvara? The only way to know Ishvara is to practice Abhyasa and Vairagya. Abhyasa and Vairagya, the two tools that are given by Patanjali in the very beginning of these aphorisms. He has given Abhyasa and Vairagya. Only these two tools are there. So unless you practice this, you cannot comprehend what is Ishvara. So then, how we can comprehend the totality. So we started practicing yoga by practicing abhyasa and vairagya. So is it sure that we can completely know totally what is Ishvara? But we have to remember that our practicing abhyasa and vairagya is only a preparation. It is a preparation to make a balance between rajas and tamas in us, activity and inertia which are there. We have to make a balance of these two. For that, we have to practice abhyasa and vairagya. So it is a preparation for us. Because in our daily life we can observe ourselves. How is our state of living? Are we able to be at the balance or equilibrium between rajas and tamas? Because when rajas is more and we live more with rajas, then what happens? There will be a change in our behavior. Then such fellow, what he does, when rajas is more active in him and rajas is more quantity in him, then what he does is he runs here and there. He wants to do something. I will do this, I have to do this, I have to do that. He keeps running here and there. He wants to establish a big organization, or some secret organization. He wants to, he builds his own ideals. He wants to change everything in society. He wants to bring a major change in the society like that. And he makes big projects and big plans to work out all his ideals, to bring his ideals into form. For all this he makes all discussions and meetings and all these things along with the people who are like him. So for some time he will be very overactive, here and there running, doing so many plans and all these things, everything. He feels that, we have to do so many things, we have to change this society, we have to bring many changes in this, all like this. So, his mind becomes hyperactive, overactive. So you must be active but not hyperactive. And in some other timings, when inertia becomes more strong in us, then we don't do anything. We just become like, thinking that nothing is possible, it is useless, we cannot bring any change. We have to wait for the time for a change. Everything is going on like this, so like this he makes his own philosophy and does nothing. Either he is hyperactive or he is inactive. So this is ill balance. So what is to be done is, by practicing sattva or balance, then you have to bring a poise, an equidistant, just like coming to stabilize at the center, equidistant. So it should not be either towards rajas or towards tamas, but in between. That means in the scientific manner, suppose you have a scale pan, when rajas is more, it will come down. When tamas is more, tamas will come down. So like this, the balance will be going up and down like this. What we have to do is, we have to come to the central point, which is called zero resting point, at the center. It should not go up or go down, it will be completely unbalanced, like that. Then we are in sattva, or balance, equilibrium. Some people think that if we totally eliminate rajas and tamas, then we can be in sattva. That is not true. You cannot eliminate anything totally, because they are part of creation. The only thing you have to do is you have to bring a balance and be at the resting point, 0 point, be at the balance. You cannot eliminate. How can you eliminate? Because without rajas, without activity, there is no creation at all. Without tamas also, there is no formation of matter at all. How can you eliminate that? Because due to rajas, due to tamas, there is formation of atoms. Due to rajas, they disappear once again. So this is a continuous process. Pre-atomic state, atomic state, and after some time, once again, when they dissolve, then they go into completely disappear. So this is a constant process. So the whole creation is not, so poise, what we call poise, is not a stillness. It is a fullness. That is how it is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Poise is not stillness. It is called positive fullness. It is not negative stillness. So rajas is also a power, and tamas is also a power. What is the thing is, we have attained an equilibrium between these two powers. That is what is explained in Bhagavad Gita also. Because we have to understand that these are the primary things which are created in the process of creation. Without this, therefore what we have to do is, we have to utilize the tools abhyasa and vairagya. We have to practice them. Because they are there, existing in the creation. Abhyasa is there in creation. It is one of the processes necessary in the creation. Habit. For example, when a child is born, so first, when the lungs of the child start to respire, Due to abhyasa, they continue respiring. They continue to make inhalation and exhalation due to habit of the lungs. So the lungs, they get habituated to contract and expand to make inhalation and exhalation. So it forms a habit. They form a habit in that. So without habit, nothing is possible in this creation. So also, the beating of the heart, the pumping of the blood in the heart, all these things are based on the habit forming nature. So the truth is that we are kept alive because of the equilibrium worked out by abhyasa and vairagya. By abhyasa only. Abhyasa is the tool which keeps us alive because it is very rhythmic. So we have to, when we want to attain, when we want to get into the yogic state, then we have to bring rajas and tamas into equilibrium. So for that we need to adapt abhyasa. So abhyasa is connected to our discipline. Discipline means when we do something, we have to keep doing it exactly the same manner. For example, we started to meditate at 6 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock in the evening. Then we have to keep that rhythm continuously. Unless we do that, we cannot. Unless we use this, we do that. Unless we make a habit of doing that, we cannot balance the activity, rajoguna. Because this rajoguna, rajas, or activity, what it makes is, it tries to bring irregularity in the rhythm of our work. And what inertia or tamoguna, what it does is, when we do something regularly, due to this tamas, it makes it monotonous after some time, mechanical. We do it mechanically after some time. This is due to tamas. Therefore, from this mechanical way of doing things, we have to come out. So what happens is, you find some persons who are very intelligent but very inconsistent. Why? Because it is the rajas working in him. So unless you put abhyasa, you cannot bring this rajas under regulated activity. So regulation So what we have to do is, because if you have to develop conscious contact with the Ishvara, we have to bring the Rajas and Tamas into equal working point, which is possible by applying abhyasa. So because how can, the best example is, the Master CVV said, you sit in prayer, ready in the prayer by 6 in the morning and 6 in the evening. So we have to apply abhyasa, otherwise we cannot do that. We have to start with applying abhyasa in the beginning until we develop an awareness. When we develop an awareness, then our mind gets tuned to that. Then automatically, when we approach the time for meditation, 6 o'clock, our mind, if it is tuned, it cooperates with us to take part in it. So, it is the mind, awareness of the mind. This is what is called Bhakti Yoga. So that means the path of devotion. So that should become continuous, this awareness. Then automatically, without any special effort, we will be ready by that time. This is an example. In the beginning, it appears very difficult to stick on to the time exactly, precisely, even for some years also. Unless we put abhyasa, we cannot, it is not easy for us. The same example. Some people we can see, even after many years also, they cannot stick on to that. Often they fail in that, which is the first fundamental thing. When it will be possible then that awareness will be continuous, how it is possible? It is possible when our mind is focused upon that which we have to practice. Like, for example, to take part in the prayer just by before 6, if we are ready and start at 6 o'clock, when we take part in this, how can it becomes easier for us is that we have to focus our mind on that whatever we are doing, whether we are doing something when we are sleeping, always if our mind is focused on that, then it becomes possible. So in our daily routine, we have to verify this. If you want to practice this, if you are in this same example, let us keep the same example. So if you have to be precisely there and take part in the prayer at 6 in the evening, for example, when we are in the office work, we can observe that a time for prayer is approaching. Then, when our mind is focused on that, automatically we will adjust the work like that to be ready to take part in the prayer at 6 o'clock. There is no need for rushing in the last moment and running. This is what Master used to always tell. He will be very relaxed, and a few minutes before that, he will be there present and be relaxed and participate in the prayer. If you, every time you just rush, and just a half minute before you jump and sit in the prayer, then it is not yoga practice. That's what Master says. Even if you do this for many births, it is not attained. So this is an example. So whatever you want to, in whichever work, if you can maintain this timing, when you can follow this very precisely, without any much effort, with very ease, without much effort, automatically if you do that, then it becomes possible that always your mind is connected to that. This is a very subtle point, but it is true for this. All other things are secondary. Whether we make this, for example, for the prayer, we make all the arrangement, all these things, these are secondary. But our mind getting into awareness for this. So, that is important. For that we have to practice this. So we have to apply this discipline, self-discipline, and apply abhyasa for this regularity. So what all these things for is to have a rearrangement, proper rearrangement in our life. When we can practice this, then there will be wonderful rearrangement that happens in our daily life. So without any logic, without anything, if we can follow this, so we have to submit all the logic, all ideas, what all I have to what I am. That is what is implied in this aphorism. That is what is explained in Patanjali. So, when we want to work with the masters, under the training with the masters, they will explain the same thing, what they are following, how they are following. They will explain the same thing. So when we want to get into contact with Ishvara, the Lord indweller, because unless we can get into contact, how can we make a total surrender to Him? For that purpose we have to know all these things and we have to put into practice all these things. We need not be afraid, because some people are afraid that if you make a total surrender to the Master, if the Master interferes with all our personal life, that is how some persons, they become skeptic to make a total surrender to the Lord. So for that we need the help of a guru, a master. Because we cannot directly know what is the address of the Lord of the universe, Ishvara. For that we need the help of a master or a guru. That is inevitable for anyone. So we have to first practice this total surrender to the Master, then only we can make the total surrender to the Lord Ishvara, Ishvara Pranidhana. Otherwise it is not, even though 100 times or 1,000 times we say we have to surrender to the indweller, the Lord, but it will not happen unless we practice with our Master or Guru. So this is something which we have to follow this discipline. Otherwise, we cannot continue. Many years we feel that we do this, we do that, but unless you apply this discipline, you cannot make a contact with the Lord indweller who is in you, who is everywhere, who is in you, Ishvara. So to have the balance between Rajas and Tamas, we have to make this practice. We have to use abhyasa. That is what Patanjali says. Because this rajas or dynamism and inertia, tamas or inertia, they are there always in every one of us, a part of our life. So whatever we do, whenever rajas is active, then we show that features which belong to rajas. Whenever tamas is active, then we show that features. So all these have their effect on our mind. We cannot escape this. That is what the Lord explains also in the Bhagavad Gita. Because it is a great force that is exerted by these rajas and tamas on us. So, it is because all the past associations are influencing us on our mind. They have influence on our mind. So our mind is gravitated by those associations. But the indweller Ishvara in us is not at all affected by any of these things. That we have to always remember. He is always along with us, inseparable. Because the individual is a part of Ishvara only, like the block of ice and the water. But even though we are a part of the indweller, we belong to him, but still, if we exist as individual, we have all these things which we have to overcome. For this, we have to practice this. So if we have to submit, make a total surrender of what I have to what I am to the indweller, we need to follow this procedure. So apply these tools of abhyasa and vairagya. That is what because there are, we have to keep observing in our daily life about this. How past associations have influence on our mind. Because of these past associations, we get involved in so many activities, and then we get bound by this involvement. That is what happening. So in every part of our life, our daily life, so therefore, all what we learn, like psychology, logic and all these things, those things will have no much value to help us. It is only this abhyasa and vairagya. Otherwise, all that what we have learned, we know so many things, but it is of no use unless we apply these tools, abhyasa and vairagya. So we have to work out. We have to work out these things with every incident, with every part of our daily life. In every step, in every field where what we enter, we have to apply this habit of surrendering everything to the Lord indweller. So this change in our life should occur so naturally and gradually. That means to bring an equilibrium between rajas and tamas, it needs a constant application, abhyasa, constant practice. So that we should not forget. That is why in the very beginning, Patanjali has given these two tools basically which we have to apply in every step in our daily life. Because you even observe at every step, at everything, even in our inhalation and exhalation also. how can we focus our mind is because our mind is always habituated to be moving here and there without focusing. So that is the habit of the mind, which we have to change this habit of our mind to keep focused. So for that purpose only, Patanjali has given to practice the 8 steps which we are going to study, like pranayama. A constant practice and application is very much required for that in our daily life. So therefore, Ishvara, the Lord, the indweller, to know Him, to transact with Him, we have to work out. We have to work out how we can make a total surrender to Ishvara by correlating with every incident in our daily life. We have to relate it. So every incident should be transformed into a tool for a practice of yoga. Then only it is possible. Otherwise, it will be away from our daily life, which is of no use. So we will continue this study of, because this aphorism needs much to be studied, applying many examples from our daily life. Unless we do that, we cannot completely understand this. So we may take some more time for this one to study this aphorism. That we will continue in our next class. Thank you all. Vasudeva.